Tuesday morning when I took the trash out, I ran into my neighbor who walked over and said with a worried expression, "I need to tell you something important. Your wife and your son are hiding something from you." From that moment, I secretly installed hidden cameras. But when I checked the footage, I nearly stopped breathing at who appeared on screen. My heart shattered, but I quickly regained my composure. Soon enough, I would repay them appropriately for the lies they had sown throughout my life all these years. I'm truly grateful you're here. Drop a comment. Have you ever discovered a secret that shattered everything? How did you handle it? Quick note. This is a fictional story crafted for entertainment. Characters and events are imagined, though the emotions explored may resonate deeply. Any resemblance to real people is coincidental. Now let's begin. The trash bag felt heavier than usual that Tuesday morning, February 12th, 2024, 7 a.m. sharp. I stepped out onto my driveway in Desert Ridge, Scottsdale, and the Arizona winter greeted me with that crisp 65-degree air that makes February mornings almost perfect. Almost. The kind of temperature where you don't need a jacket, but the chill still wakes you up faster than coffee. Our neighborhood was quiet at this hour. Most folks were still inside getting ready for their day. The Sonoran Desert stretched out beyond our development, all saguaros and rocky hills turning golden in the early sun. I'd always loved mornings like this, 26 years in this house, and I still appreciated the view. I was halfway to the bins when I noticed Frank Wilson standing near the curb. Frank lived 3 houses down. 67 years old, retired postal worker, widowed 2 years back after Linda passed from breast cancer. Good man. The kind who kept his lawn pristine and always waved when you drove by. We'd helped each other with yard work over the years, shared beers during block parties, the usual neighbor stuff. But he wasn't doing yard work now. He was just standing there, waiting. "Morning, Frank," I called out, hoisting the bag toward the recycling bin. He didn't return the greeting right away, just looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Concern, pity. Something that made my stomach tighten before he even opened his mouth. "Michael." He stepped closer, glancing back at my house like he was checking if anyone could hear us. "We need to talk, man to man." I set the trash bag down slowly. "Everything okay?" Frank pulled off his Arizona Cardinals cap, the one he wore every single day, and turned it over in his hands. I'd known this man for 15 years, and I'd never seen him look uncomfortable before. Not even at Linda's funeral. "There's been someone coming to your house," he said quietly. "When you're gone, on your work trips." The morning air suddenly felt a lot colder than 65 degrees. "What do you mean someone?" "A man." Frank's jaw tightened. "Started noticing it about, I don't know, maybe 6 months back. Figured it was a relative at first or a contractor you'd hired, but it kept happening. Always the same pattern. He shows up around 10 at night, leaves by 6 in the morning. Always on the nights you're traveling." My mouth went dry. "Frank, black Audi A7, newer model, maybe 2022 or 2023. He's got his own key, Michael. Walks right in like he owns the place. Tall guy, gray hair, expensive suit. Looks like he's got money." The world tilted sideways. I'm not a violent man, never have been. But in that moment, I wanted to put my fist through something. Instead, I just stood there, the trash bag forgotten at my feet, trying to process words that didn't make any sense. How many times? My voice didn't sound like mine. Frank looked down at his cap. See, I stopped counting after a dozen. Could be more. "I'm sorry, Michael. I should have told you sooner, but I kept thinking maybe I was wrong, maybe it was innocent, maybe." "No." I held up a hand. "I don't know, Frank. You're telling me now. That's what matters." He nodded, clearly relieved. "If you need anything..." I appreciate it. I picked up the trash bag with hands that had started to shake. I really do. We stood there for another moment, two middle-aged men in a quiet Scottsdale subdivision, one of us having just destroyed the other's entire world with a few sentences. "Take care of yourself," Frank said, finally putting his cap back on. I watched him walk back to his house, then turn toward my own. The two-story Spanish colonial we'd bought in 1998. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, desert landscaping. Worth about $780,000 now, according to the last appraisal. Catherine had picked out every detail: the terracotta roof tiles, the wooden beams in the living room, the fountain in the backyard. Our home. I walked back inside, and the familiar smell of morning coffee hit me. Catherine was in the kitchen, her back to me, pouring coffee into her favorite mug, the one that said, "World's Best Mom," that Austin had given her for Mother's Day years ago. She was wearing her blue silk robe, her dark hair still damp from the shower. 26 years. I knew that robe. I knew the way she held her coffee cup. I knew the little sounds she made in the morning, the way she always checked her phone while the coffee brewed. I thought I knew her. "Hey, hun," she said, without turning around. "You were out there a while? Everything okay?" "Yeah." The lie tasted like copper in my mouth. "Just chatting with Frank." Austin was at the kitchen table, 26 years old, and glued to his phone like always. Probably scrolling through social media or whatever was trending this week. He'd been living with us since dropping out of Arizona State 4 years ago. Couldn't hold a job, couldn't seem to figure out what he wanted to do with his life. We'd been patient, supporting him, hoping he'd find his way. He didn't even look up when I walked in. Everything looked normal. Catherine sipping her coffee, Austin on his phone, the morning news playing softly on the TV in the living room. The scent of her lavender soap mixing with the dark roast Colombian blend I bought from Costco every month. Normal. Except it wasn't. Not anymore. I sat down at the table across from Austin, my own coffee cup trembling slightly in my hands. I forced myself to take a sip, forced myself to breathe normally, forced myself to look at my wife and son and act like the world hadn't just shattered into 1,000 pieces. A flashback hit me without warning. Our wedding day, September 1998, at that little chapel in Paradise Valley. Catherine in her white lace dress holding my hands at the altar, tears in her eyes. "I will love you forever," she'd said. Her voice had been so sure, so steady. I'd believed every word. I'd built my entire life on those words. That memory felt like it belonged to someone else now, some other Michael Harrison who didn't know what I knew. "You okay, Dad?" Austin glanced up from his phone. "You look weird." "Just tired," I managed. "Long week." Catherine turned around, studying my face with those brown eyes I'd woken up next to for 2.5 decades. "You've got Houston tomorrow, right? Houston. Another business trip, another night away, another opportunity for someone with a black Audi to use his key." "Yeah," I said. "Houston." She smiled at me, that same smile that had made me fall in love with her at a company picnic 27 years ago. The smile I'd trusted completely. "You work too hard," she said softly. I looked down at my coffee, at my hands wrapped around the ceramic mug, hands that had held our son when he was born, hands that had built a life, a career, a home, hands that were shaking so badly I had to set the cup down before I spilled it. "Yeah," I said again. "Maybe I do." Austin went back to his phone. Catherine went back to her coffee. The morning news droned on about traffic and weather. And I sat there at my kitchen table in my house with my family, knowing that nothing would ever be normal again. The coffee had gone cold in my cup, but I hadn't moved to refill it. I sat there at that kitchen table watching Catherine finish her coffee and Austin scrolled through his phone. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Like a stage set where the actors were waiting for their cue. I needed to test them. Needed to see if Frank had been wrong, if maybe I was overreacting. Maybe there was some reasonable explanation. Maybe no, I had to know. You know, I said, casually setting down my mug. Frank said something really odd this morning when I was taking out the trash. The change was immediate. Catherine's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. I watched her knuckles turn white against the ceramic. Austin's fork stopped mid-air, suspended between his plate and his mouth, with a piece of scrambled egg that never completed its journey. Just for a second. Maybe two. But I saw it. The panic, the coordination. Then they recovered. Oh. Catherine's voice was light, but her smile looked painted on. What did Frank say? I kept my tone casual, curious. He mentioned seeing some unusual activity at our house. When I'm traveling for work. A car coming late at night. Catherine laughed. Too quickly. Too brightly. Michael, honey. She set her cup down with deliberate care. Frank is 67 years old. He's been confused ever since Linda died 2 years ago. You know how elderly people can get. Their minds start playing tricks on them. Yeah, Dad. Austin jumped in without missing a beat. That old guy is pretty out of it. He probably saw someone visiting a different house and got confused about which one. You know how dark it gets at night around here. I watched them. Really watched them. The way they didn't quite meet my eyes. The way Catherine's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her tablet. The way Austin's jaw was clenched just a fraction too tight. And the way they glanced at each other. Just once. Just for a heartbeat. But I caught it. That look between them. Coordinated. Practiced. Like players on a team checking their positions. 26 years of marriage teaches you to read your spouse. 26 years of being a father teaches you when your son is lying. They were both lying. You're probably right, I said, slowly nodding as if considering it. Frank has seemed a bit off lately. I shouldn't read too much into it. The relief that washed over their faces was almost comical. Catherine's shoulders dropped. Austin's grip on his fork relaxed. They thought I'd bought it. Thought I was satisfied with their explanation. Austin seized the moment. Hey, Dad, speaking of which. He set his fork down, adopting that sheepish expression he'd perfected as a teenager when asking for money. Could you transfer me an extra $1,500 this month? I've got some unexpected expenses. I looked at my son, 26 years old, living in my house, eating my food, and asking for more money while sitting across from me, lying to my face. What kind of expenses? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Just, you know, stuff. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. Some clothes for job interviews. I owe a couple of friends some money. Nothing major, just need a little help. Catherine backed him up immediately. Our son needs support, Michael. You know how difficult things are for young people these days. The job market is terrible. He's trying his best. I let the silence stretch for just a moment, long enough for them to wonder if I was going to push back, long enough to see the worry creep back into Austin's expression. Then I nodded. Sure, I'll transfer it tonight. The relief was instant, visible. Austin actually smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from him all morning. Thanks, Dad. You're the best. Catherine reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're a good father, Michael. Austin is lucky to have you. Her hand felt cold. Or maybe mine was. I couldn't tell anymore. I should get ready for work. I said, standing. My legs felt steadier than I expected. Maybe shock has its benefits. Don't forget you're leaving for Houston tomorrow. Catherine reminded me, already turning back to her tablet. How could I forget, I said. Houston. Another business trip. Another night away from home. Another opportunity for someone with a black Audi and a key to walk through my front door. I walked out of the kitchen, my footsteps echoing on the tile floor. But instead of heading downstairs to our bedroom, we'd converted the main floor guest room into our master suite 3 years ago for convenience. I stopped at the base of the stairs leading up to the second floor. There was a spot on the upper landing, just around the corner, where the acoustics of the house did something strange. Sound carried up from the kitchen perfectly, like the house itself was designed to betray secrets. I discovered it years ago, back when Austin was in high school, and we'd wanted to make sure he wasn't getting into trouble with his friends. Funny how these architectural quirks come back to haunt you. I climbed the stairs slowly, quietly, testing each step to avoid the creaks I'd memorized over 2 decades. The 3rd step from the top, the 7th from the bottom. I knew which ones to avoid. At the top, I pressed my back against the wall just out of sight and waited. It didn't take long. The upper landing was silent, except for the sound of my own breathing. I pressed my back against the wall, every muscle tensed, waiting. Then their voices drifted up from the kitchen below. Low, urgent, conspiratorial. Austin, this is serious. Catherine's whisper carried perfectly through the architecture of our home. If your father installs cameras... Mom, relax. Austin cut her off. Dad's clueless. He doesn't suspect anything. He's been traveling for work for years and never noticed a thing. My hand found the wall for support. My legs felt like they might give out beneath me. You need to tell Douglas to be more careful, Catherine continued. What Frank saw, I texted him last night already. Austin's voice held an edge of irritation. He said not to worry. He called Dad the perfect fool who only thinks about work. The perfect fool. Those words hit me like physical blows. I had to bite down on my tongue to keep from making a sound. Tasted copper, blood, my own blood from my own teeth in my own mouth while my wife and son discussed how stupid I was. Besides, Austin went on, he still owes me money, $750 for this month plus the extra $500 he promised last week. $750. Every month. My son was being paid to keep quiet about my wife's affair. Oh, he'll pay, Catherine said. Her voice was matter-of-fact, businesslike. He always does. Just make sure your father stays blind to it. Douglas. They were talking about Douglas Anderson. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Douglas Anderson, my boss for the past 8 years. 6'2", gray hair, always impeccably dressed in suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Drove a black Audi A7, the exact car Frank had described. Douglas controlled my project schedule. He assigned my business trips. He knew exactly when I'd be out of town, exactly how long I'd be gone, exactly when the house would be empty except for my wife and her key-holding lover. The nausea hit me hard. I pressed one hand against my mouth, swallowing it down, forcing myself to stay silent. To keep listening. I have to go, Austin said. Meeting some friends. Be careful with that money, Catherine warned. Don't blow it all in one place. I heard movement. Chairs scraping. The conversation was ending. I forced myself to move, forced my legs to work to carry me down the stairs with measured normal steps. One foot in front of the other. Don't run. Don't stumble. Act natural. By the time I reached the bottom, Austin was heading toward the garage, phone already back in his hand. He didn't even glance my way. Catherine was rinsing her coffee cup at the sink, humming softly. some song from the radio. She looked so peaceful, so content. "I'm heading to work," I said. My voice came out steady, even, completely at odds with the chaos screaming through my head. "Have a good day, honey." She smiled at me over her shoulder. That same smile I'd woken up to for 26 years. Sure, don't forget to pack for Houston tonight. I won't. I grabbed my keys from the hook by the garage door. The same hook where they'd hung for 2 decades. The same keys that opened the same car parked in the same driveway of the same house where my wife was sleeping with my boss, while my son took payment for his silence. "Love you," Catherine called after me. The words made my stomach turn, but I said them back anyway, because that's what we did. That's what we'd always done. "Love you too." I walked through the garage, past Austin's old bike that hadn't been ridden in years, past the storage bins full of Christmas decorations, past the tools I'd organized so carefully last summer, and got into my truck. A Ford F-155 years old, perfectly maintained. A sensible vehicle for a sensible man who went to work every day and provided for his family and never suspected a thing. The perfect fool. I closed the door, put the keys in the ignition, and sat there. The garage door was still open. I could see our street through the opening, the Johnson's house across the way, the Rodriguez's place next door, Frank's house 3 doors down, where a 67-year-old widower had tried to warn me that my life was a lie. 3 minutes passed. Maybe longer. I don't know. Time felt strange, like it was moving too fast and too slow simultaneously. My hands were shaking. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white the same way Catherine's had when I'd mentioned Frank's warning. The same physical tell that had given her away. Douglas Anderson, the man who'd hired me, mentored me, sent me congratulations cards when I finished big projects, came to our house for dinner parties where Catherine had laughed at his jokes and poured his wine and smiled that smile that I'd thought was just her being a good hostess. How long, how many of those business trips, how many nights had I been in Houston or Denver or Phoenix while Douglas Anderson was in my house, in my bed, with my wife and Austin? My son, 26 years old. The kid I'd taught to ride a bike, to throw a baseball, to change a tire. The boy who'd cried when his dog died and hugged me so tight on his first day of school. That same person was upstairs right now, probably texting Douglas about how well he'd deflected my suspicions at breakfast. $750 a month. I did the math automatically. Engineer's habit. If this had been going on for 6 months, Frank said he'd noticed it that long ago. That was $4,500. If it was longer, 10 months would be $7,500. A year would be $9,000 that my son had been paid to lie to my face. The garage smelled like oil and concrete and the lavender detergent Catherine used on our towels. Normal smells, the smell of home. Except it wasn't home anymore. Maybe it never had been. I turned the key. The engine started with its familiar rumble. I put the truck in reverse and backed out of the driveway with the same careful movements I'd made thousands of times before. But as I drove away from that house, that beautiful Spanish colonial in Desert Ridge with its terracotta tiles and desert landscaping and fountain in the backyard, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The perfect fool was done being fooled. The Phoenix skyline stretched out beyond my 5th-floor window at CoreTech Construction Group, but I wasn't seeing it. I'd driven the 23 miles from Scottsdale to downtown on autopilot, barely registering the other cars on the 101. Now I sat at my desk, surrounded by blueprints and project specifications that might as well have been written in a foreign language. The numbers on my screen blurred together. The CAD drawings made no sense. All I could see was my son's face across the breakfast table. All I could hear was Catherine's voice drifting up from the kitchen. "Just make sure your father stays blind to it." My hands moved across the keyboard out of habit, pulling up spreadsheets I couldn't focus on. But my mind was doing different calculations now. The kind of math no engineer wants to run. 18 business trips in the last 6 months. I'd counted them on the drive over, ticking them off mentally. Houston 3 times. Denver twice. San Diego, Albuquerque, Las Vegas, Tucson. 3 nights average per trip, some longer. 54 nights away from home. 54 opportunities for someone with a key to park his black Audi in my driveway. 54 chances to walk through my front door. 54 nights in my bed with my wife in my house. The numbers made me feel sick. "Morning, Michael." I looked up. Douglas Anderson stood in my doorway. 6'2". Gray hair styled perfectly, the kind of expensive cut you get at those upscale places in Kierland Commons that charge $80 just for a trim. Charcoal suit with subtle pinstripes that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment. Maybe $2,000. Maybe more. He looked exactly like Frank had described, right down to the confident way he walked, like he owned every room he entered. Because he did own rooms. My office, my schedule, my home when I wasn't in it. "Morning." I managed my voice steadier than I felt. Douglas stepped inside, hands in his pockets, completely at ease. We'd worked together for 8 years. He'd hired me when Cortec was expanding their industrial engineering division. Promoted me twice. Given me the kind of projects that built careers. I'd trusted him. Respected him. Invited him into my home. "We need you in Houston next week," he said. "The refinery project. They're having issues with the cooling system specs. Need your expertise. 4 days, maybe 5. 4 days, maybe 5. The calculation ran through my head automatically. 4 nights minimum. 4 more opportunities. 4 more times he'd have my house to himself, while I was 1,000 miles away, solving problems for a company that paid him to send me on trips that served his own purposes. He controlled my schedule, selected my assignments, decided when I traveled and for how long. He'd been creating his own opportunities all along. Houston. I forced my face into what I hoped looked like normal concern about work. "Sure. When do I leave?" "Thursday." Douglas pulled out his phone, checking something. "I'll have Amanda book your flight. United Direct flight, your usual. Everything okay?" "You seem a bit distracted." I was a 52-year-old man, looking at my boss, the man sleeping with my wife, paying my son for his silence, and having to pretend everything was fine. That I was just a reliable employee thinking about cooling system specifications instead of murder. "Just tired," I said. The lie came out smooth. Natural. "Didn't sleep well? Houston's no problem. I'll confirm the flight details tonight." Douglas smiled, clapped me on the shoulder like we were friends, like he hadn't called me the perfect fool to my son. The touch made my skin crawl. I forced myself not to flinch, not to pull away, not to grab his wrist and break it. "That's why you're my best engineer, Michael," he said. "Always reliable, dependable, predictable, the perfect fool." He left his footsteps fading down the hallway toward his corner office. The executive suite, the place where he made 6 figures and decided which projects got priority and which engineers got sent where. I sat in the silence of my office, surrounded by the evidence of 15 years of work at this company. Commendations on the wall, photos from completed projects, a plaque from last year when I'd finished the Tempe facility ahead of schedule and under budget. My phone buzzed. "Catherine, don't forget to pack tonight, love you." A memory hit me without warning. Our wedding reception 26 years ago. Catherine had pulled me onto the dance floor, laughing, her white dress swirling around her. I'm the luckiest woman in the world," she'd said, resting her head against my shoulder. The DJ was playing something slow. Her friends were watching. Her mother was crying happy tears. I'd believed her. Believed I was lucky too. Believed in the life we were building together. Now I understood. I hadn't been lucky. I'd been selected. Targeted. A stable engineer with a good income and a trusting nature. The kind of man who worked hard and traveled for business and never asked too many questions. The perfect mark. I opened a private browser window, typed carefully, "Hidden Camera Installation, Phoenix, Arizona." The search results loaded. Dozens of companies. I scrolled through them, systematically reading reviews, checking credentials, looking for something that would work. Tech Secure Systems caught my eye. 4.9 stars across 200 reviews. Discreet surveillance specialists. Professional installation. No one will know. I clicked through to their website, read about their services, hidden cameras, audio recording, motion-activated systems, cloud storage, real-time monitoring. Everything I'd need to document what was happening in my house when I wasn't there. I bookmarked the page, closed the browser, cleared my history. The blueprints on my desk came back into focus. Project specifications, budget projections, the normal work of a normal Tuesday for a normal engineer who would go on a normal business trip next week. Except nothing was normal anymore. And by the time I came back from Houston, or wherever Douglas was sending me next, I'd have cameras in every room, recording everything, every conversation, every movement, every moment of the lie my life had become. They wanted me blind fine. I'd been blind for 6 months, maybe longer, but I was done being the perfect fool. Now I was going to be the perfect documentarian. The smell of roasted chicken hit me the moment I walked through the front door. February 12th, 6:47 p.m. I'd left work early, driven home through rush hour traffic on the 101. My mind churning through camera specifications and installation logistics instead of the engineering reports I was supposed to be reviewing. Catherine had made my favorite dinner. Herb roasted chicken with root vegetables, the recipe she'd perfected over the years. The one she always made for special occasions. Birthdays, anniversaries, celebrations. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Perfect timing," she said, smiling as I set my briefcase down. "Dinner's just ready." The dining room table was set with our good plates, the ones we'd gotten as a wedding gift from her aunt. Cloth napkins, candles. Austin was already seated, phone face down next to his plate for once. Everything looked like a normal family dinner. Picture perfect. The kind of scene you'd see in a home magazine. I sat down and watched Catherine bring out the chicken on a platter. Golden brown skin, perfectly seasoned. Steam rising into the air along with that familiar rosemary scent. My stomach turned. "This looks amazing," I said, because that's what you say. That's what the perfect fool would say. We passed dishes, filled plates, made small talk about nothing important. Catherine mentioned something about her book club. Austin grunted responses between bites. I moved food around my plate, tasting nothing, feeling nothing, except the weight of what I knew pressing down on my chest. Then I set my fork down, deliberately, carefully. I've been thinking," I said. "I travel too much, missing too much time with you both. I want to talk to Douglas about cutting back on trips, maybe let some of the other engineers handle the site inspections." The change was immediate. Catherine's smile froze. Her eyes widened just a fraction of a second, but I caught it. That flash of panic before she locked it down. Austin's fork clattered against his plate. "But honey," Catherine recovered quickly, her voice smooth. "Your career, Cortec depends on you. You're their best project engineer. Now isn't the time to step back." "Dad," Austin jumped in urgent. You're up for regional director, right? Cutting back on travel now would look terrible, like you're not committed anymore. I watched them work in tandem, tag teaming, convincing me to stay on the road. They needed me gone. Cortec will understand if you need to prioritize family, I said, testing further. 26 years of marriage, Catherine. I should be here more. With you. We understand when you have to travel. Catherine reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. Her touch felt cold. We're proud of your dedication. Aren't we, Austin? Yeah, Dad. Austin nodded enthusiastically. You do what you need to do for work. We're fine at home. We're fine at home. Without you. That's what he meant. Catherine squeezed my hand. Besides, you've worked so hard to build this career. Don't throw it away now. The promotion is so close. A few more months of travel and then you'll have more flexibility. Won't that be better? A few more months? A few more opportunities for Douglas? A few more payments to Austin? I let the silence stretch like I was considering it, like I was a man torn between work and family, struggling with a difficult decision. Maybe you're right, I said, finally sighing as if accepting defeat. Career comes first. I miss you guys. The relief on their faces was unmistakable. Catherine's shoulders relaxed. Austin went back to his chicken. Crisis averted. They needed me traveling, needed me gone, needed me blind. A memory blindsided me. Austin at 10 years old, Little League championship game. He'd hit a home run, his first ever in a real game, and run straight to me in the stands. Did you see? Did you see? His face had been pure joy. He'd hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I want to be just like you when I grow up, Dad. My chest had swelled with pride, with love, with the certainty that being a father was the most important thing I'd ever do. That memory hurt worse than anything they'd said today. Worse than perfect fool. Worse than knowing about Douglas. Because that 10-year-old boy who'd wanted to be like me had turned into this 26-year-old man who was helping destroy me for $750 a month. I should go answer some work emails, I said, standing. Houston Prep. Of course, honey. Catherine started clearing plates. You work so hard. I climbed the stairs to our second-floor office, the room I'd converted 5 years ago, built custom shelves for my engineering manuals, installed the standing desk I'd researched for months before buying. But I didn't open my work email. I opened a private browser, created a new encrypted email account, one they'd never find, never trace. I typed carefully. Need discrete camera installation. Urgent. Wife and son cannot know. Available this Thursday. I attached the Tech Secure Systems contact form I'd bookmarked earlier. Hit send. Then I sat back in my chair, the ergonomic one Catherine had bought me for my birthday 3 years ago, and stared at the wall. At the degrees hanging there. Bachelor's in Civil Engineering from Arizona State. Master's in Structural Engineering from UCLA. 15 years of certifications and continuing education. All that education, and I hadn't seen what was happening in my own home. The reply came 20 minutes later. Available Thursday, 2 p.m. 4-camera package, $4,500. Complete discrete installation 2 to 3 hours. Vigil Pro app for remote viewing. Can provide references. My fingers moved across the keyboard. Confirmed. Will send address separately. Need cameras in master bedroom, living room, kitchen, and garage entrance. Motion activated. Cloud backup. No visible wiring. Send. I closed the laptop, sat in the darkness of my office listening to the sounds of my house below. Catherine running water in the kitchen, the TV turning on, Austin's footsteps heading to his room. Thursday. In 2 days, I'd have cameras recording everything. Every conversation, every visitor, every moment of the truth I'd been too blind to see. How long had I been fooled? 6 months, a year longer. I thought about all those trips, all those nights away, all those times I'd called home from Houston or Denver, and Catherine had answered with, "I miss you," in that sweet voice. All those times Austin had said, "Everything's fine here, Dad." How many of those calls had Douglas been listening? How many times had they laughed about me after hanging up, the perfect fool working late traveling for business, providing for his family while they dismantled his life piece by piece? Not anymore. Wednesday morning, February 14th, 2024. Valentine's Day. I made coffee and waited for Catherine to come downstairs. When she did at 7:30, already dressed, smelling like lavender soap, I set my trap. "Happy Valentine's Day," she said, kissing my cheek. The gesture made my skin crawl, but I smiled back. "Happy Valentine's Day." Austin wandered in 15 minutes later, heading straight for the cereal cabinet. "Hey," I said casually, pouring myself more coffee. "I called your mother last night. She mentioned feeling under the weather. Maybe you two should visit her today. Keep her company." Catherine paused mid-pour with the coffee pot. "Today, it's Valentine's Day." I kept my expression concerned, caring, the devoted son-in-law. "That's exactly why she might be lonely. Your dad's been gone 3 years now. She's probably missing him." It wasn't entirely a lie. I had called Sarah earlier that morning at 6:15 while Catherine was in the shower, told her I was planning a surprise for Valentine's Day and needed Catherine out of the house for the afternoon. Sarah, who'd always liked me, who'd cried at our wedding, had agreed immediately to play along. "You're such a thoughtful son-in-law," she'd said. "Catherine is lucky to have you." If only she knew. Catherine hesitated, clearly torn. "I suppose we could go after lunch. Around 2. That would be perfect," I said. "Perfect for me anyway." 1:58 p.m. I stood at the living room window watching Catherine's Honda CR-V back out of the driveway. Austin in the passenger seat, glued to his phone, heading toward Tempe, 15 minutes away to Sarah's retirement community. My phone buzzed. "Arriving in 5 minutes. 2:05 p.m. A white van pulled up to my curb. "Tech Secure Systems," in blue letters on the side. Professional. Discreet. 2 men got out. The older one, maybe 40, Hispanic, neat beard, headed straight for my front door. The younger guy followed, carrying equipment cases. I opened the door before they could knock. "Mr. Harrison." The older man extended his hand. "Roberto Sanchez. This is my associate, Marcus. Let's get you protected." Protected. That was one way to put it. I led them inside through the living room Catherine had decorated so carefully, past the kitchen where we'd eaten 1,000 family meals, up the stairs to the master bedroom where I'd slept next to my wife for 26 years. "Show me where you need coverage," Roberto said, pulling out a tablet. I walked them through it systematically, like an engineering project. "Living room. I need to see the front door and the main seating area." Roberto nodded, assessing angles. "Smoke detector. Perfect placement, completely hidden." "Kitchen. Need to see the table and counter space. Wall clock. We've got one that matches your style." "Upstairs hallway. Monitor who goes up and down." "Electrical outlet. Motion activated." We stopped at the master bedroom doorway. I had to force myself to walk in, to point at the bed Catherine and I shared. "Here." My voice came out rougher than intended. "I need to see everything." Roberto's expression didn't change, No judgment, no pity, just professional assessment. We'll replace your alarm clock with an identical model. Built-in camera, perfect angle. Your wife won't notice the difference. The installation took 2 hours and 40 minutes. I watched them work with strange detachment. Like I was watching someone else's life, some other man having cameras hidden in his own home because his wife was sleeping with his boss and his son was being paid to keep quiet about it. Roberto worked efficiently, explaining each step. Marcus handled the wiring, making everything invisible. They were professionals. How many other desperate husbands had stood exactly where I was standing? At 4:45 p.m., Roberto pulled out his phone. Download this. Vigil Pro. I'm adding your devices now. I watched the app install. 4 camera feeds appeared on my screen. Crystal clear 4K resolution. 4 different angles of my house, my home, my evidence collection system. See? Roberto demonstrated. Tap any stream to expand. Swipe to zoom. This icon activates audio, very sensitive, picks up whispers from across the room. Everything records automatically to encrypted cloud storage. 60-day retention. You can download clips anytime. I tested it. Watched myself on the bedroom feed, standing there with Roberto and Marcus. The angle was perfect. You could see the entire bed, the nightstands, the door, everything I didn't want to see but needed to document. Payment, Roberto asked. I pulled out my phone, transferred $4,500 via Zelle, money I'd moved from our joint account into my personal account 2 days ago. Money Catherine hadn't asked about because she trusted me to handle our finances. The irony was suffocating. Roberto and Marcus finished packing up at 5:20 p.m. The house looked exactly the same. Nothing suspicious, nothing out of place. At the door, Roberto handed me his business card. If you need anything, Mr. Harrison, call me directly. And he paused. I'm sorry. Whatever's happening, I'm sorry you're going through it. I nodded, couldn't speak. Shook his hand, watched them drive away. Then I stood in my living room alone and pulled up Vigil Pro. 4 feeds, 4 angles, 4 ways to watch my life fall apart in real time. 5:45 p.m., Catherine's CRV pulled into the driveway. I pocketed my phone and arranged my face into something resembling normal. We're back, Catherine called out, coming through the front door. She walked right past the smoke detector camera. Didn't notice a thing. Mom's fine, just a little tired. Nothing to worry about. Austin headed straight for the kitchen, grabbed chips from the pantry, stood directly under the wall clock camera. Completely oblivious, Catherine came up behind me, wrapped her arms around my waist. Thank you for thinking of my mom. That was really sweet. Of course, I said. That evening, we went through the Valentine's Day motions. Catherine had made reservations at our favorite Italian place in Old Town Scottsdale. We sat across from each other, drinking wine, eating pasta. To anyone watching, we looked like a happy couple celebrating 26 years of marriage. My phone buzzed periodically with Vigil Pro alerts. Motion detected. Home system active. Everything recording. Back home at 10 p.m., Catherine changed into the red nightgown she'd bought for the occasion. We lay down in our bed, the one we'd picked out together 12 years ago from that furniture store in Phoenix. The alarm clock on the nightstand looked exactly the same as always. Same red digital numbers, same plastic casing, same position. Except now it was recording everything. Catherine kissed my cheek. Happy Valentine's Day, honey. I love you. Love you too, I said automatically. She fell asleep within minutes. I lay there staring at the ceiling, hyper-aware of the camera 6 feet away. Recording us. Recording her telling me she loved me while planning to meet Douglas the next time I left town. Tomorrow morning, I'd board a plane to Houston. 4 days, maybe 5, Douglas had said. 4 days for them to use my house while I collected evidence. My phone was under my pillow. I pulled it out, carefully checked Vigil Pro. All 4 cameras active. Motion detection enabled. Cloud backup running. Everything was ready. By this time tomorrow night, I'd have everything I needed to destroy them all. Thursday morning, February 15th, 2024. My suitcase sat packed by the front door. Catherine was making eggs and coffee in the kitchen, playing The Devoted Wife. She hummed softly some song from the radio, moving around in her blue bathrobe. Through the window, the Arizona sun was just starting to burn off the morning chill. 68 degrees already. Going to be a beautiful day. For them, anyway. "You sure you have everything?" she asked, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs toward me. "Phone charger, laptop. Those project files Douglas wanted you to review. Got it all." I forced myself to eat. The eggs tasted like nothing, like I was chewing cardboard. But I kept my face neutral, kept the fork moving from plate to mouth like everything was normal. My suitcase wasn't just for show. I'd actually packed it last night, 3 days' worth of clothes, toiletries, my work laptop, charging cables, even those project files Catherine had just mentioned. Had to make it convincing. Had to make them believe I was really leaving for Houston. That I'd be 1,000 miles away for the next 4 days while they had the house to themselves. "Houston project," I said, taking a sip of coffee. 3, maybe 4 days, depending on how the site inspection goes. I'll call when I land at Bush Intercontinental. Catherine came around the counter and kissed my cheek. The gesture felt mechanical now. Hollow, like she was going through the motions of being a wife, checking off boxes on some invisible to-do list. Fake concern, fake affection, fake everything. "Travel safe, honey. We'll miss you so much." We. Like she and Austin were a team, which I guess they were. Austin waved from the living room couch, eyes barely leaving his phone screen. "Bring back some Texas barbecue, Dad. That place near the airport you went to last time." I looked at my son, 26 years old, sitting on the couch I'd bought, in the house I paid for, eating food I provided, getting paid $750 a month to lie to my face. "Will do," I said. I watched them both carefully over the rim of my coffee mug, the barely concealed relief on their faces, the way Catherine's smile finally reached her eyes for the first time in days, the way Austin's shoulders relaxed, his posture loosening like a weight had been lifted. They wanted me gone, needed me gone. Were counting down the minutes until my truck pulled out of the driveway. "Guess I should hit the road," I said, standing and carrying my plate to the sink. "Traffic to Sky Harbor's going to be brutal this time of morning. Don't want to miss my flight." Catherine followed me to the front door, playing her part perfectly. She straightened my collar, even though it didn't need straightening. Brushed imaginary lint off my shoulder. Hugged me with just enough pressure to seem genuine. "Love you," she said. "Love you too." The words tasted like ashes in my mouth. I grabbed my suitcase, heavier than usual because I'd actually packed everything, and walked through the garage to my truck, loaded the suitcase in the bed. Started the engine. Catherine stood in the doorway waving, picture-perfect suburban wife seeing her hard-working husband off on another business trip. I backed out of the driveway at 8:30 a.m. sharp. She was still waving when I turned onto the street, still playing the role, still lying. But I didn't head west, toward Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport like I'd said. Didn't take the usual route toward the 202 and then the 143 south to the terminals. Instead, I drove east on Loop 101, then south toward Tempe. Traffic was light mid-morning. Took me 15 minutes to reach my brother's apartment complex on Rural Road, just a few blocks from Arizona State University. Matthew Harrison, 49 years old, 3 years younger than me. Financial analyst for a tech company. Divorced 5 years ago, his ex-wife had cheated on him with her personal trainer. Now he lived alone in a modest 2-bedroom apartment, worked too much, traveled constantly. Currently in Amsterdam on a business trip until next Tuesday. I'd called him last night after Catherine had gone to bed. Matt, I need to use your place for a few days. Can't explain over the phone right now, but it's important. Really important. Matthew hadn't asked questions. Never did. That's what I'd always loved about my little brother. He just understood when something was serious. Keys under the green, welcome, Matt, he'd said. Apartment 3C, 3rd floor. I'm in Amsterdam until Tuesday morning. Mi casa es su casa, big brother. Stay as long as you need. Whatever you're dealing with, I've got your back. I found the key exactly where he'd said. Let myself into the apartment building, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, walked down the hallway to 3C. Matthew's place was exactly what you'd expect from a divorced workaholic. Minimalist furniture, clean lines, everything organized and practical. No decorations, except a few photos of our parents and some prints of mountain landscapes. The place smelled stale. He'd been gone 4 days already. Windows closed, air conditioning on low. I set my suitcase by the door, walked through the small living room to the dining table, set up my laptop, pulled out my phone, opened Vigil Pro. The app loaded. 4 camera feeds appeared on my screen, arranged in a grid. Crystal clear 4K resolution. Living room empty. Kitchen empty. Upstairs hallway empty. Master bedroom empty. My house. My home. Empty except for Catherine somewhere off camera. Waiting. I sat there at Matthew's dining table staring at those 4 feeds like they might spontaneously reveal something. Like Catherine would suddenly appear and announce this was all a misunderstanding. That Frank had been wrong. That everything I'd overheard was taken out of context. But nothing happened. Hours crawled by. I ordered Chinese food from a restaurant down the street, lo mein and orange chicken that I barely touched. Took a shower in Matthew's small bathroom. Tried to watch something on TV. Couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting back to my phone. Back to those 4 feeds. Still empty. 9 p.m. I checked again. Catherine walked through the living room, carrying something. Moved too fast for me to see clearly. 9:30. Nothing. 9:50. Catherine appeared in the living room feed again. This time I saw her clearly. She was wearing a dress I didn't recognize. Blue. Fitted. She'd done her makeup more than usual. Her hair was styled curled at the ends. She looked beautiful. She was getting ready for someone. My hands started shaking. 9:58. Austin left through the front door. The living room camera caught him checking his phone, grabbing his leather jacket from the coat rack by the entrance. He glanced back at the house once like he was making sure everything was clear, then walked out of frame. The house was empty now. Just Catherine. Waiting. My heart hammered against my ribs. I stood up from Matthew's dining table, sat back down, stood up again, paced the small living room phone gripped so tight my knuckles turned white. This was it. This was the moment. 26 years of marriage about to be documented in 4K resolution with crystal clear audio. 10:05 p.m. The doorbell rang. If you're still with me at this point, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment sharing your prediction. Who do you think is at the door? And what do you think Michael is about to discover? Your theories always fascinate me, and I read every single one. Quick reminder, before we continue, this narrative contains fictionalized elements crafted for storytelling. If this style doesn't suit your preferences, feel free to pause here. Otherwise, let's find out what happens when that door opens. My finger hovered over the audio activation button. On the living room camera, Catherine opened the door. Douglas Anderson stepped inside 6'2" charcoal suit, with subtle pinstripes Italian leather shoes that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. He carried a bottle of wine in one hand and flowers in the other. I zoomed in on the wine label, Napa Valley Cabernet, the same vineyard Catherine and I had visited on our 15th anniversary. Retail price around $180. He'd brought expensive wine to drink in my house. Before Catherine could say a word, Douglas pulled her into a kiss. I counted. 18 seconds. Couldn't look away, even though every second felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Deep hungry, his hand cupped behind her neck. Her body melted into his like they'd done this 1,000 times before. My hands gripped the edge of Matthew's dining table so hard my knuckles turned white. The wood creaked under the pressure. When they finally broke apart, Douglas handed her the roses. 12 red roses. I could see them clearly on the 4K feed. "For the most beautiful woman in Arizona," he said. Catherine laughed, a sound I'd never heard in 26 years of marriage. Light girlish, delighted, like a teenager with her first crush. "You're such a smooth talker, Doug." Doug. She had a nickname for him. I tapped the audio button. The sound came through crystal clear, like they were in the room with me instead of 15 miles away. They moved to the kitchen. Camera 2 activated automatically, the motion sensor doing exactly what Roberto had promised. I watched Catherine pull out our corkscrew, the one we'd bought at that winery in Napa Valley. She reached into the cabinet and took down 2 wine glasses. Not just any glasses. Our anniversary glasses, the Waterford crystal her sister had given us for our 10th anniversary. She was using our anniversary glasses to drink wine with my boss. Douglas opened the bottle with practiced ease, poured 2 generous servings like he'd done this before. Probably had. How many times? How many nights had I been in Houston or Denver or San Diego while they drank wine in my kitchen? They raised their glasses. "To uninterrupted nights," Douglas said. Catherine clinked her glass against his. "To my husband and his very convenient business trips." They both laughed. The sound made me want to drive back to Scottsdale and put my fist through Douglas's face. But I stayed frozen at Matthew's table watching Documenting being the engineer instead of the husband. Their conversation continued. I forced myself to listen to every word. "When does the fool come back?" Douglas asked, taking a sip of the Cabernet. "Monday night. We have the whole weekend." Catherine set her glass down, moved closer to him. 3 full days. "Perfect. I told Nancy I'm at a company retreat in Flagstaff. Leadership workshop, team building exercises, all that corporate nonsense." She bought it completely. Nancy. His wife. 54 years old, married to Douglas for 28 years. I'd met her at company Christmas parties. Nice woman. Always asked about Catherine and Austin. Made small talk about gardening and their grandkids. She had no idea either. Douglas swirled his wine, studying it like he was at a tasting room. "You know, I almost feel bad for Michael sometimes. Guy works so hard, makes good money, completely clueless about what's happening in his own house." My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. Catherine leaned against the counter in my kitchen. "Don't feel too bad about it. He married his job years ago. Even when he's home, I barely see him. You give me what he never could: attention, passion, excitement. He's a good provider, I'll give him that. But that's all he is. A good provider. That's all I was to her. A paycheck. A convenient husband who traveled for work and paid the bills while she entertained my boss." I sat in Matthew's apartment, watching this unfold on a 6-inch screen, feeling like I was having an out-of-body experience. like this was happening to someone else. Some other Michael, whose wife was in his kitchen drinking his expensive wine using his anniversary glasses, mocking him to his boss. But it wasn't someone else. It was me. 11:30 p.m. They finished the wine, started moving toward the stairs. The hallway camera caught them perfectly. Douglas's hand on Catherine's waist, her head resting on his shoulder, both of them laughing about something I couldn't quite hear. The bedroom camera activated. I didn't watch the intimate parts. Fast-forwarded through sections though the audio kept recording. But I saved everything. Every frame. Every word. Every second of betrayal documented in crystal-clear 4K. I plugged in USB drive number 1. Started transferring files. 4 hours of footage. Then uploaded copies to 2 separate cloud storage accounts with different providers. Encrypted passwords. 2-factor authentication. Evidence. Documentation. Proof that would hold up in any court. 1:47 a.m. Douglas was still there. The bedroom camera showed 2 figures under my sheets. In my bed. The one Catherine had insisted we buy 12 years ago because the old one hurt her back. I finally closed Vigil Pro. Sat in the darkness of Matthew's living room staring at nothing. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing on Rural Road outside. My phone buzzed. Text from Catherine. Hope Houston is going well. Miss you, the heart emoji. The same one she'd sent me 10,000 times over the years. The same one she probably thought meant something. I stared at the message. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to respond, to type exactly what I was thinking, to tell her I knew, that I'd seen everything, that I was going to destroy her. But I didn't. Couldn't risk giving away what I knew. Not yet. Not until I had everything documented, every pattern established, every piece of evidence locked down. I set the phone face down on the coffee table. 3 a.m. I was still awake, lying on Matthew's couch, staring at his ceiling. White paint. Smooth texture. Nothing like the textured ceiling in my bedroom where I'd lain next to Catherine for 26 years. 4 hours of footage saved. Audio of them mocking me, calling me a fool, laughing about my convenient business trips, using my home like a hotel, drinking wine I'd paid for with glasses I'd received as gifts. But I needed more than one night. One night was a mistake, a lapse in judgment, something a lawyer could explain away. I needed a pattern, multiple instances, evidence that this was systematic, ongoing, premeditated. I needed proof that would be undeniable in divorce court. When custody discussions happened, when asset division came up, when lawyers started calculating alimony and property splits. So I waited for Saturday, February 16th, 11 a.m. I checked Vigil Pro expecting to see an empty house, hoping maybe that Friday night had been a one-time thing, a mistake, something Catherine would regret and never do again. The kitchen camera proved me wrong. Douglas and Catherine were having breakfast together, 11 to 17 a.m., according to the timestamp in the corner of the feed. A domestic scene that made bile rise in my throat. Douglas sat at my kitchen table wearing my bathrobe, navy blue, the one Catherine had given me for Christmas 3 years ago, reading something on a tablet, probably the news, completely comfortable, completely at home. Catherine stood at the stove in a silk nightgown, scrambling eggs in my cast-iron skillet, the one I'd seasoned myself over years of use. Her hair was messy, uncombed. She looked relaxed, happy. They looked exactly like a married couple having a lazy Saturday morning. I tapped the audio icon with shaking fingers, thinking next weekend. Douglas was saying, when he's in Denver. Catherine flipped the eggs. 3 full days. Where will you tell Nancy you are visiting my brother in Tucson? She never checks, never has. He took a sip of coffee from my favorite mug, the Arizona State one I'd had since college. Your husband makes this very convenient, you know. All this travel. It's almost too easy. Catherine laughed. Actually laughed. Well, that's Michael. Predictable, reliable, never questions anything. I started taking notes, documenting everything. Dates mentioned, lies being planned, the casual comfort they displayed in my house, the way Douglas wore my clothes, the way Catherine cooked for him like she used to cook for me back before she stopped caring. Evidence. I needed evidence. Not emotion, not rage. Evidence. Saturday, 8:45 p.m. Austin left the house through the front door. The camera caught him checking his phone, grabbing his keys, getting into his car. The pattern was confirmed. Austin made himself scarce whenever Douglas came over, not because he was uncomfortable with his mother's affair, because he was part of it. Paid to enable it. 10 p.m., Douglas arrived again. Same routine. Wine. Flowers. That kiss in the doorway that lasted too long. I watched it all from Matthew's apartment, documented everything, saved files, backed up to multiple locations. Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. They were still together. I watched them drink coffee in my kitchen, discussing their next meeting like business partners planning a merger. Catherine mentioned something about Austin needing money. Douglas laughed, said something about the kid having expensive taste. The kid. My son. Their accomplice. Then, at 11:30 Sunday morning, the most damning footage appeared. Austin came home. The front door camera caught him walking in, casual as anything. No hesitation, no surprise. He went straight to the kitchen where Douglas sat, still wearing my bathrobe like he owned the place. Austin showed zero shock, zero discomfort. Hey, Douglas. Mom upstairs. Yeah. Douglas didn't even look up from his phone. She's in the shower. The familiarity between them made my blood run cold. This wasn't the first time. This wasn't awkward or new. This was routine, practiced, normal. Austin grabbed a water bottle from the fridge, stood there like he was talking to a family friend. About what we discussed last week. My dad mentioned something about installing security cameras. Should we be worried? Douglas actually laughed. Set down his phone and looked at Austin with amusement. Your dad's all talk, kid. Always has been. He mentions doing things all the time, but never follows through. I've managed him for 8 years. I know exactly how he operates. He won't do anything. The words hit me like a physical blow. My boss. The man I'd trusted. The man I'd worked for. He was sitting in my kitchen, wearing my bathrobe, sleeping with my wife, paying my son, and calling me incompetent. Austin nodded, seemed satisfied. Good. Also, you still owe me this month's payment? $750 for February. Already in your account as of Friday. What about that extra $500 you mentioned? Douglas sighed like Austin was being unreasonable. That's only if you warn me about any real suspicion. The camera thing doesn't count clearly. He didn't do anything about it. Come on, man. I need the money. I'm broke. Fine. Douglas pulled out his phone. I'll advance you $400 against March, but that's it. I'm not an ATM. Austin grinned. Deal. Thanks, Doug. They shook hands. I stared at my phone screen, at my son negotiating payment terms for betraying me, like it was a business transaction, like selling out your father was just another side hustle. $750 a month, plus bonuses for information, plus advances when he ran short. I took screenshots, saved the video clip, transferred it to USB drive number 2, uploaded it to cloud storage Google Drive with encryption enabled, then uploaded to a second cloud account for redundancy. By Sunday evening, I had 14 hours of footage across 3 days. Douglas arriving Friday night. Still there Saturday morning. Saturday night. Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. Not a one-night mistake. Not a lapse in judgment. A pattern. A routine. A relationship. Douglas finally left at 7:15 Sunday evening. I watched him kiss Catherine goodbye at the door. Watched her watch him drive away with an expression of genuine sadness. She missed him already. Catherine closed the door. Stood there for a moment with her hand pressed against the wood. Then she turned and walked back into the house. Our house and I watched her sit on the couch and stare at nothing. My phone buzzed. Text from Catherine, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Safe travels home." Safe travels. From the business trip I wasn't actually on, to the home that wasn't really mine anymore, to the wife who'd spent the weekend with my boss. I didn't respond. Sunday night, 10:30 p.m. I sat in Matthew's apartment with 2 USB drives and cloud backups containing 14 hours of video evidence. Evidence of infidelity. Evidence of conspiracy. Evidence of Austin receiving monthly payments of $750. Evidence of them mocking me, planning future encounters, using my home like a hotel. But evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed professionals. A lawyer who specialized in divorce. A private investigator who could dig deeper. Financial experts who could trace money. Character witnesses who could testify. I needed to build an army. Tomorrow I'd start recruiting. Monday, February 19th, 2024. 9 a.m. I wasn't at my desk at Cortec Construction. Wasn't reviewing blueprints or analyzing project budgets. Wasn't pretending everything was normal while Douglas walked past my office with that confident stride. Instead, I sat in the waiting room of Investigative Solutions, LLC on Camelback Road, watching the second hand tick around a wall clock that seemed to move too slowly. I'd called Douglas at 8 a.m. Kept my voice weak, tired. Not feeling great today. Going to work from home. His response came immediately, sympathetic, concerned. "Take care of yourself, Mike. Don't push it. Your health comes first." Mike. He had a nickname for me too. Just like Catherine called him Doug. The concern in his voice would have been touching if I didn't know he'd spent the weekend in my bed, wearing my bathrobe, drinking wine from my anniversary glasses. At exactly 9 o'clock, the office door opened. Derek Sullivan stepped out. 50 years old, built like someone who'd spent decades walking beats and chasing suspects. Former Phoenix PD detective turned private investigator. 15 years in the business, according to the website I'd researched obsessively yesterday afternoon. Gray eyes that missed nothing, firm handshake. The kind of man who'd seen everything and wasn't easily shocked. "Mr. Harrison." His voice was gravelly professional. "Come on in." His office matched the man, professional without being fancy. File cabinets organized with military precision. Awards on the wall, Phoenix Private Investigator of the Year 2022. Commendations from the police department. Photos of him in uniform, younger receiving medals. This was someone who knew how to build cases. Someone who understood evidence. I set my laptop on his desk. "Mr. Sullivan, I need you to watch something." "Derek, call me Derek." He pulled his chair closer. "And before we start, everything you tell me is confidential. Client privilege. Whatever's on that screen stays between us unless you authorize otherwise." I opened the edited compilation I'd made last night. 22 minutes of the most damning footage from my 14 hours of evidence. The kiss at the door. The wine toast. The conversation about the fool and convenient business trips. Catherine and Douglas having breakfast in my kitchen. And finally, the part that made my hands shake every time I watched it, Austin negotiating payment with Douglas. The handshake, the casual discussion of my son's monthly rate for betraying me. Derek watched in silence. His expression stayed neutral, professional, but I caught small tells. The way his jaw tightened when Douglas called me incompetent. The way his pen stopped moving when Austin asked about his payment. The way he leaned back when they shook hands like he needed distance from what he was seeing. When the video ended, Derek sat quietly for a moment. Then he closed the laptop and looked at me. Mr. Harrison, Michael. He set his pen down deliberately. I've been doing this for 15 years. Seen a lot of cheating spouses, seen financial betrayal, seen families torn apart, but a son taking money to cover up his mother's affair. He shook his head. That's a new level of moral bankruptcy. Can you get his financial records? I asked. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Every transfer Douglas made to Austin over the past year. I need documentation beyond what I've recorded. Derek nodded, already taking notes. I can subpoena bank records through legal channels for civil cases. Takes about 10 days. I'll also run a comprehensive background on Douglas Anderson employment history assets, any skeletons in his closet. Man this comfortable with betrayal, there's usually more than one victim. What about my wife? Her finances? That too. Phone records showing frequency of contact, credit card statements, travel patterns, if there are hotel visits, rental properties, anything that establishes this as an ongoing affair rather than an isolated incident. He looked up from his notes. You're building toward divorce, I assume. Among other things. Derek quoted his fee. $5,200 for a comprehensive investigation. That includes forensic accounting, complete background checks, surveillance if needed, and testimony preparation if this goes to court. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, transferred $5,200 via Zelle without hesitation. Derek's eyebrows rose slightly. You came prepared. Most people take a few days to decide. I've had 2 days to think about nothing else. He glanced at his computer, confirming the transfer. All right then. We're officially engaged. I'll start with the financial records, those take the longest. Background checks, I can have preliminary results by Thursday. Full workup by next Monday. Thursday works. Derek leaned back in his chair, studying me. One question, Michael, if you don't mind. The wife, I get it. Affairs happen, marriages fail. That's ugly but common. But your son, he shook his head, actively participating, taking money. In 15 years, I've never seen a kid do that. Why? I stared at Derek's wall, at the commendations, the certificates, the evidence of a career spent finding truth. I don't know, I said finally. I keep asking myself that. $750 a month. That's what I'm worth to him. That's the price tag for betraying your father. Did you have a bad relationship? Was he resentful, looking for payback? No. The word came out hollow. I taught him to ride a bike, coached his little league team, paid for his college until he dropped out, let him live at home rent-free for 2 years. I thought, my voice cracked. I thought we were close. Derek didn't offer platitudes, didn't say it wasn't my fault or that I'd done my best. Just nodded, wrote something in his file, and moved on. Professional, efficient, exactly what I needed. I'll need copies of everything you've recorded, he said. Send encrypted files to this email address. He wrote it on his business card. And Michael, you did the right thing documenting this. A lot of people confront, immediately destroy evidence, make the case harder to prove. You kept your head, built documentation. That's going to matter in court. We shook hands. Derek walked me to the door. Preliminary report Thursday afternoon. I'll call when it's ready. And Michael, he paused. I'm sorry this is happening. For what it's worth, you're doing everything right. Stay the course. I left his office at 10:45 a.m. One professional secured, one piece of my army assembled. But documentation wasn't enough. I needed a legal executioner. Someone who could take this evidence and turn it into financial devastation. Asset seizure, disinheritance. A divorce settlement that would leave Catherine with nothing. I had an appointment with attorney Carolyn Spencer at 11:30. 11:30 a.m. same day. 15th floor of a downtown Phoenix high-rise. Spencer and Associates Family Law occupied the corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The reception area smelled like leather and expensive coffee. Everything pristine, professional. Framed case victories lined the hallway. Settlement agreements with impressive numbers. Court decisions highlighted in yellow. Carolyn Spencer's office was at the end. Corner suite. Windows on two sides. Bookshelves packed with Arizona law. Awards on the wall, Arizona Family Law Attorney of the Year 2019. A plaque, 94% success rate in contested divorces. 35 years. Carolyn stood when I entered. 60 years old, sharp gray suit, reading glasses on a chain. Presence of someone who'd spent decades destroying opposing counsel. Mr. Harrison? Firm handshake. Please sit. I handed her USB drive number 1. Ms. Spencer, I need a divorce, and I need to legally destroy them. She plugged in the drive without hesitation, watched my 15-minute compilation in silence, taking notes, pausing to review sections. Her pen moved constantly. When it ended, she removed her glasses. Now, Michael, may I call you Michael? With evidence like this, we're not just aiming for a favorable divorce. We're aiming for legal devastation. She pulled up Arizona community property law, turned the screen toward me. Normally, Arizona is 50-50, but adultery with clear documentary evidence changes everything. With proof this ironclad, you'll receive 75% of marital assets, possibly 80%. The house becomes yours solely, and she'll receive 0 spousal maintenance. Arizona allows complete denial in adultery cases. The house is valued at $780,000, I said. She joint investments about $320,000. Savings $178,000. Carolyn made notes. Shadi ha no. Combined assets approximately $1,278,000. You're looking at roughly $960,000. She gets maybe $300,000 zero ongoing support. The numbers felt clinical, abstract, like a business transaction instead of 26 years ending. Now regarding your son. She pulled up another document. Lee will file for disinheritance under Arizona Revised Statutes Section 14-2804. He conspired against you for financial gain. That's grounds for complete removal. Will life insurance, retirement accounts, everything. The word disinheritance hit harder than expected. Austin was still my son, the boy I'd raised, who'd hugged me after Little League games. Then I remembered. $750 a month. Do it, I said. Carolyn nodded. Regarding inheritance rights, we should verify paternity. Standard procedure in high-value disinheritance cases. Eliminates any future challenges. Makes everything airtight. I froze. A DNA test. Exactly, just precautionary. You're removing him from inheritance. We want no loopholes for him to challenge later. It's thorough legal process. Something cold settled in my stomach. Is that necessary? In a case this complex, with this much money at stake? Yes, it closes every possible avenue for dispute. She handed me a business card. Gene Test Labs. Fast, reliable, court admissible. Collect a DNA sample. Hair with follicles works best. Results in 5 to 7 business days. She slid a pre-filled form across the desk. Total legal fees $11,500. $6,000 retainer today, remainder when we file. I transferred $6,000 via my phone. Carolyn's computer pinged. You came prepared. I've had time to think about what I need. Paperwork will be ready next week. We'll coordinate with Derek Sullivan. I've worked with him before. Now, how do you want to serve the papers? I looked her directly in the eye. I want to be there. With you. With a process server. I want to see their faces when they realize what's happening. Carolyn smiled slightly. The smile of a general approving a battle plan. That can be arranged. We discussed strategy for 20 more minutes. Timeline, court procedures, asset division, the likelihood Catherine would contest. She can contest all she wants, Carolyn said. But you have 14 hours of video evidence, bank records coming, professional testimony. No judge will side with her. At 1:15 p.m. I left with the Gene Test Labs kit in my briefcase. Small cardboard box, collection tubes, evidence bags, instructions, just a precaution, Carolyn had said. Standard procedure. But something about it felt heavier. That evening, after Austin's usual long shower, I walked into his bathroom. His hairbrush sat on the counter. Black bristles full of dark hair. I pulled on latex gloves from the kit, selected 3 strands with clear follicles, sealed them in the evidence bag, filled out the chain of custody form, signed where indicated. By 9 p.m., the FedEx envelope was in the overnight drop box. Priority delivery to Gene Test Labs in Scottsdale. 5 to 7 business days for results. Just procedure, I told myself. Just covering all legal bases. Austin was my son. Of course he was. I'd been there when he was born. Cut the umbilical cord. Held him when he was seconds old. But I needed to be thorough. Monday, February 26th, 2024. Morning. I'd spent the past week maintaining perfect normalcy at CoreTech. Reviewed blueprints, attended meetings, made small talk with Douglas about project timelines. He never suspected a thing. 9 a.m. KeyBank downtown Phoenix branch. Patricia Moreno met me in a private consultation room. My financial advisor for 8 years, early 40s, efficient, discreet. She'd helped me refinance the house, set up retirement accounts, plan Austin's college fund, back when he was still in school. Patricia, I need to make some urgent changes to my accounts. My marriage is ending. I need to protect my assets. Her expression stayed professional. No surprise, no judgment. I understand. What do you need? I'd made a list. Rehearsed it. First, transfer $135,000 from our joint savings account into my personal account. Leave Catherine $43,000, enough to avoid any legal claims of financial abuse. Patricia made notes. Current joint balance is $178,000. That leaves her roughly 24%. Within legal parameters for asset preservation during divorce proceedings. Second, cancel Austin's supplementary credit card. American Express $10,000 limit. I've been paying it for 2 years. More notes. Done. The card will be deactivated within the hour. Third, remove Austin from my life insurance beneficiaries. Northwestern Mutual Policy, $425,000 value. Change primary beneficiary to my brother Matthew Harrison. Patricia pulled up the policy on her computer. That's a significant change. Are you certain? Completely certain. Fourth, update my will. Remove Austin entirely. Everything goes to Matthew if I die. She typed for a moment. I'll need you to meet with our estate attorney to formalize the will changes. I can schedule that for this afternoon if you're available. Do it. Patricia worked efficiently, transferring money, updating beneficiaries, making notes for the legal department. Professional, clinical, like we were discussing investment strategies instead of dismantling my family. These changes will be effective within 48 hours, she said. Is there anything else? I need complete statements for the past 3 years, both joint accounts and credit cards. While she printed, I reviewed Catherine's spending on our joint account. The numbers told their own story. $6,400 over the past 14 months for personal items. I scrolled through the details. Victoria's Secret, $840. Sephora perfume purchases $650. Bella Rosa spa treatments $2,100. Dinners at expensive restaurants when I was supposedly traveling for work. She'd been preparing for Douglas on my dime. Getting her hair done, buying lingerie, spa treatments, all charged to our joint account while I was in Houston or Denver earning the money she was spending. Austin's credit card statement was worse. $18,200 in 2 years. While unemployed, while living in my house rent-free, while collecting $750 monthly from Douglas, bars, restaurants, designer clothes, electronics, gaming equipment, concert tickets. I'd been funding his lifestyle while he took payment to betray me. Patricia handed me the printouts. Thick stack. 3 years of financial betrayal documented in black and white. Every dinner, every spa appointment, every purchase Catherine had made while planning her next encounter with my boss. Anything else, Mr. Harrison? I shook my head. This is enough. Thank you for your discretion. Of course. And Michael. She paused at the door. I'm sorry this is happening. I left the bank at 10:30, walked across the parking lot toward my truck, the Arizona sun already heating up the asphalt. Mid-70s in late February. Perfect weather. Beautiful day. My phone rang. Derek Sullivan. Michael, preliminary results. I unlocked my truck, sat in the driver's seat. Go ahead. Douglas Anderson transferred exactly $10,500 to Austin's Bank of America account over 14 months. $750 monthly regular as clockwork. Started March 2023, continued through April 2024. I have the full bank records. Dates, amounts, account numbers, everything. Cold satisfaction settled in my chest. Good. What else? Something interesting. Your wife has an old Yahoo email account from the late 90s. Looks like she forgot about it, but it's still active. Still backing up to cloud storage. There might be communication history there, early emails, correspondence, maybe evidence of how long this has been going on. My pulse quickened. Can you access it? Legally. It's her account, but if it's stored on shared devices or has recoverable passwords through public information, it's fair game for civil investigation, especially with evidence of conspiracy already established. Do it. I need to see everything. Give me until tonight. I'll send you what I find. Derek hung up. I sat in my truck with the engine off, reviewing Patricia's financial documents. $135,000 secured in my personal account. Austin's credit card canceled. He'd find out the next time he tried to use it. Life insurance redirected to Matthew. Will updated. My financial walls were up. My evidence was backed up in triplicate, and Derek was excavating Catherine's digital past. Whatever he found in those old emails, I knew it wouldn't be good. But I needed to know, needed to understand how deep this went, how long I'd been played for a fool. My phone buzzed. Email notification, Gene Test Labs. Subject line, DNA test results ready for review. I stared at the screen. The notification sat there innocuous, professional. Just another email among dozens I received daily. Just routine, Carolyn had said. Standard procedure for disinheritance cases. Dotting I's and crossing T's. Closing legal loopholes. Austin was my son. 26 years. I'd been there when Catherine's water broke at 3 a.m., driven 90 miles an hour to Good Samaritan Hospital. Held her hand through 12 hours of labor. Cut the umbilical cord myself when the doctor offered. Watched him take his first breath. Heard his first cry. I'd changed his diapers, taught him to walk, read him bedtime stories, coached his little league team, helped with homework, driven him to school every morning for 12 years. Of course he was mine. I opened the email. The message was brief, professional. Your DNA test results are ready for secure viewing. Please log into your account portal using the credentials provided during sample submission. I clicked the link, entered my case number. Password. The loading screen took 3 seconds, felt like 3 hours. Then the results appeared. Probability of paternity 0.00%. Conclusion. The tested male is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. I read it again, then again. The words didn't change. 0%. Excluded. Not the biological father. Austin wasn't my son. 26 years. 26 years of believing, of raising him, of loving him, of thinking he was mine. And he wasn't. My hands started shaking. The phone slipped from my fingers, clattered onto the center console. I sat in that parking lot, engine off, windows up, the Arizona sun beating down on my truck, and felt my entire life collapse into something I didn't recognize anymore. Wednesday, February 28, 2024. 3:47 a.m. My phone vibrated on Matthew's nightstand, pulling me from shallow sleep. I'd been staying at his apartment on and off, telling Catherine I was doing extended site inspections. She believed it. Why wouldn't she? I'd always been reliable, predictable, the perfect fool. The notification lit up the screen. Email from Gene Test Labs. Subject line, DNA test results, confidential. I sat up instantly. Heart hammering, mouth dry. Just routine, I told myself. Standard procedure. Carolyn had said so. Just crossing T's and dotting I's for the disinheritance filing. I opened the email on my phone. My hands were shaking slightly. PDF attachment downloaded. Paternity analysis report. Michael Harrison, alleged father, and Austin Harrison, child. I scrolled to the conclusion section. 3 words destroyed my world. Probability of paternity 0%. I read it again. The words didn't change. The tested male, Michael Harrison, is excluded as the biological father of the tested child, Austin Harrison. For 47 seconds, I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, just stared at those words on the small screen in the darkness of Matthew's guest room. Then I lurched to the bathroom and vomited, hard. Everything in my stomach emptied into the toilet, while I gripped the edges, cold sweat breaking out across my forehead. When the retching stopped, I sat on the cold tile floor, shaking. The fluorescent bathroom light hummed overhead, too bright, too harsh. When I could stand, I went back to the bedroom. Opened my laptop. Needed to see the report on a bigger screen. Needed to be absolutely certain. The results were definitive, clinical, unambiguous, 0% probability. Not my son. Never was. My mind started calculating. Engineer's habit even in crisis. 26 years of child-rearing costs. Average $19,000 per year, according to USDA estimates. That's $494,000. Plus Arizona State tuition before he dropped out $45,000. Plus the Honda Civic I bought him at $18,22,000. Plus 2 years of living expenses while he was unemployed, $38,000. Total $599,000 I'd spent raising another man's son. The memories came without permission. Flooding back, each one now poisoned. The hospital room in 1998. The nurse placing newborn Austin in my arms. Congratulations, Dad. Catherine smiling weakly from the bed. He has your eyes. She'd lied, even then, looking me straight in the face and lying. Austin at 7 years old, teaching him to ride a bike in our driveway, running alongside, holding the seat steady. I got you, buddy, I got you. His skinned knee, me bandaging it. His trust in me absolute. Austin's high school graduation 2016. Cap and gown. Thanks for everything, Dad. I couldn't have done this without you. My chest swelling with pride. Every birthday, every Christmas, every I love you, Dad. All built on a lie. I wasn't raising my son. I was raising Douglas Anderson's son. Catherine had known from day one, had looked at me holding that baby in the hospital and let me believe he was mine. Let me cut the umbilical cord. Let me sign the birth certificate. Let me love him for 26 years. I was crying. Actually crying for the first time in maybe 20 years. Sitting on the floor of Matthew's apartment at 4:30 in the morning, tears running down my face trying to process the fact that my entire identity as a father had been a fiction. 6 a.m. I called Derek Sullivan. Too early, but this was an emergency. He answered on the second ring. Michael, my voice broke. He's not my son. Austin, the DNA results came back. 0% match. Silence on the other end. Then, Jesus Christ, Michael. I'm so sorry. This changes everything legally. You can sue for paternity fraud. You could recover over $500,000 in damages. Those old emails, I said through tears. Did you find anything? Still going through them. Give me until tonight. But Michael, if the DNA is 0%, we need to figure out who the biological father is. I already knew. In my gut, I knew. It's Douglas. Has to be Douglas. Let me verify. I'll have answers by this evening. He hung up. I sat on Matthew's couch as dawn broke over Tempe, watching the sky lighten through the window, holding a DNA report that said I'd been living a lie for 26 years. At 8 a.m., I called Cortec, told Douglas I was still sick, needed another day. His concern sounded genuine. Mike, you okay? That's 3 days in 2 weeks. Maybe you should see a doctor. Maybe I should see a doctor. The man who'd gotten my wife pregnant 26 years ago was worried about my health. I spent Wednesday in a fog, sitting in Matthew's apartment, staring at the DNA report on my laptop screen, reading it over and over like the words might change. They didn't. 26 years. Over $500,000. Thousands of moments I'd cherished as a father. First steps, first words, teaching him baseball, helping with homework, college visits. All of it built on a foundational lie so perfect, it had erased my identity. I wasn't Michael Harrison, devoted father. I was Michael Harrison, useful dupe. Around noon, I pulled up photos on my phone. Austin as a baby, toddler, little kid, teenager, graduate. looking for resemblance to me, finding none. How had I never noticed? How had I never questioned? Because I'd trusted Catherine, believed her when she said, "He has your eyes." Never thought to look closer, because why would I? She was my wife. He was my son, except he wasn't. At 3 p.m. my phone rang. Carolyn Spencer. "Michael, I just received the DNA results. Are you all right?" "No." "This is paternity fraud. In Arizona, we can add this to the filing." Catherine concealed Austin's biological parentage for 26 years. That's intentional misrepresentation. We can seek full restitution every penny you spent on child support, education, living expenses. We're talking $500,000 to $600,000 in damages. "Who's the father?" My voice sounded hollow. "Can we prove it's Douglas?" "That's the next step. We'll need Douglas's DNA to confirm. But Michael, even without that confirmation, the fraud case is solid. She let you raise another man's child while knowing the truth. That's actionable." We talked for 20 more minutes. Legal strategy, filing amendments, damage calculations. But I couldn't focus. Couldn't think past the fact that the boy I'd raised, the son I'd loved, had never been mine at all. At 7:15 p.m., Derek called back. "Michael, I went through Catherine's old Yahoo account, the one from 1997. And you need to sit down for this." "I'm already sitting." "Monterita, Catherine and Douglas have known each other since 1997, before you even met her. Wednesday, February 28th, 7:15 p.m. My phone rang. Derek Sullivan. I'd been sitting in Matthew's apartment for hours waiting for this call. "Derek." His voice was careful. "Michael, sit down. What I found in those old emails, it's worse than we thought." I gripped the armrest. "Tell me." Derek had accessed Catherine's Yahoo account from 1997 to 1998. She'd set up automatic cloud backup, then forgotten about it. 23 emails between Catherine and Douglas, September 1997 through March 1998. I'm sending them now, but let me read you the important ones. Email 1. September 14th, 1997. From douglas.anderson.work@morrison-eng.com to Kathy C1975 at Yahoo. Come subject, "We need to talk." "Kathy, I can't do this. A baby, I'm 29. My career at Morrison Engineering is just starting. I'm up for project manager next month. A kid would destroy everything. You need to make a choice." I felt ice spread through my veins. Email 2. September 18th, 1997. Catherine's response. "Doug, relax. I'm not asking you to raise it. I have a plan. There's a guy I met at a coffee shop last week, Michael Harrison, 25, junior engineer at Core Tech Construction. Stable job, good income, seems really sweet and kind of naive. I can work with him. You focus on your career. I'll handle it." Derek paused. "Michael, she targeted you. This was calculated." Keep going. Email 3. October 15th, 1997. 3 dates with Michael. He's perfect, responsible, earnest, talks about wanting a family. I told him I'm on birth control, I'm 12 weeks along. He believes everything. Give me 2 more months. Email 4. December 22nd, 1997. He proposed last night. Took him to South Mountain Lookout. He had a whole speech about building a life together. Ring is smaller than I hoped, half carat, but whatever. I told him I'm pregnant. He cried, he was so happy. Thinks it happened last month. Numbers line up perfectly. Wedding March 1998. You owe me big time, Douglas. Email 5. January 1998. Douglas, you did good, Kathy. I'll send you $800 monthly once the kid is born. Keep him convinced it's his. Maybe in a few years we can figure something else out. Derek continued. 18 more emails. Douglas sending money $800 a month for Austin's first 2 years. Updates on the baby. Emails stop in 2000 when Douglas moved to Tucson. But they stayed in contact. Sporadic payments over the years, $500 here, $1,000 there. Birthday money for the kid. She never told you. So Douglas is known for 26 years. Catherine trapped me from the start. I was selected at a coffee shop. Paternity fraud. Conspiracy to defraud. 26 years documented. You're holding a nuclear bomb. Derek sent all 23 emails. I read each one. Catherine's casual tone describing sweet, naive Michael. Douglas's relief at not dealing with the kid. Their agreement to keep me blind. September 1997. 1 month before I met Catherine. The coffee shop in Tempe, where she'd accidentally bumped into me. Where we'd talked for 2 hours. Where she'd smiled and asked about my job. None of it real. She'd been 12 weeks pregnant. Already planning. Already hunting. I remembered my proposal. South Mountain. I'd been so nervous. Had the ring in my pocket for 2 weeks. Practiced my speech. He actually cried, he was so happy. She'd been laughing inside, thinking how perfect a mark I was. The pregnancy announcement 3 weeks later. Her tears, relief not joy, my promise to be the best father. Our rushed wedding in March because we wanted the baby to have married parents. All choreographed, all scripted. I pulled up wedding photos. March 1998. Catherine in white. Me grinning. The luckiest man alive. The Mark who didn't know he'd been selected. Austin's birth, April 1998. Me cutting the umbilical cord. Congratulations, Dad. Catherine's weak smile. He has your eyes. He never had my eyes. Douglas had sent $800 monthly for 2 years. Then sporadic payments. Birthday money. I'd spent $599,000 raising his son. Your son's getting so big, Michael. You must be proud. Douglas had said that. Multiple times. At company events. Standing in my house. Drinking my beer. Knowing Austin was his. By 10 p.m., I wasn't sad anymore. I was cold, surgical. They hadn't just betrayed me for 14 months. They'd built a 26-year lie, shaped my entire adult life, used me as a tool. Catherine had targeted me, studied me, seduced me, trapped me. 3 months from coffee shop to engagement to pregnancy announcement. A professional con lasting 2.5 decades. And Austin. The son I'd raised, loved, taught to throw a baseball. He'd known. Catherine or Douglas had told him. Instead of telling me he'd taken $750 monthly to stay quiet. I paced Matthew's apartment, made coffee, sat back down, read the emails again. By midnight, my hands were steady. The grief had crystallized into something sharper. Tomorrow I'd call Carolyn Spencer, tell her about the emails, the 26-year conspiracy. We wouldn't just file for divorce, criminal charges, civil suits, paternity fraud, conspiracy to defraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress. I'd take the house, savings, investments, every penny. I'd sue Douglas for $599,000 in restitution, plus interest, plus punitive damages. I'd disinherit Austin completely, remove him from my will insurance life, and I'd make sure everyone knew. Cortec, neighbors, friends, Catherine's family, Douglas's wife, Nancy. Everyone would know what they'd done. They'd built a 26-year lie. I was going to burn it to the ground. Friday, March 1st, 2024. 3 p.m. I stepped into Martin Chandler's office on the 12th floor of CoreTech Construction, carrying a leather briefcase containing the end of Douglas Anderson's career. Martin's corner office was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Phoenix, mahogany desk, walls displaying 35 years of company history. Martin Chandler, 72 years old, silver hair, sharp blue eyes. Founded CoreTech in 1989, built it from a 3-person operation into a $50 million company. He stood to greet me. Firm handshake. Michael, your email mentioned an urgent ethics violation involving Douglas. That's a serious allegation. Please sit. I sat across from his desk, setting my briefcase between us. Thank you for making time, Mr. Chandler. I wouldn't ask for this meeting unless it was critical. You've been with us 8 years. You're one of my best engineers. I trust your judgment. What's going on? I opened the briefcase, pulled out 3 USB drives, Derek Sullivan's 40-page investigation report in a professional binder, and a manila folder containing DNA results. I pushed the first USB across his desk. I need you to watch this. It involves Douglas Anderson. For the next 22 minutes, Martin reviewed footage on his large monitor. I'd created a compilation specifically for this meeting. Video: Douglas entering my house, timestamps visible. Audio: the "When does the fool come back" conversation. Video: Austin and Douglas shaking hands, clear audio about $750 monthly payments. Derek's financial analysis: $10,500 in bank transfers over 14 months. CoreTech company policy highlighted Section 17(b) prohibiting romantic relationships with relatives or spouses of subordinates. I watched Martin's face. Confusion for the first 3 minutes, disbelief from 4 to 8, jaw clenching from 9 to 15, controlled fury from 16 to 22. Martin removed his reading glasses, set them down carefully. Douglas has been with us 11 years. This is the most serious violation I've seen in 35 years running this company. There's more, Mr. Chandler. I pushed the DNA report across. Douglas Anderson is my son's biological father. He's known for 26 years. My wife and he conspired to keep this secret while I raised his child. I have emails from 1997 proving they planned this. Martin read the DNA report. His face darkened. He pressed his intercom button. Amanda, find Douglas Anderson immediately. Tell him to come to my office right now. Emergency. 8 tense minutes of waiting. Martin reviewed more of Derek's report, occasionally shaking his head. Douglas walked in at 3:47 p.m., confident stride. Expensive navy suit, completely unaware of the trap waiting. He saw me. His smile faltered slightly. Martin: Michael. What's going on? Douglas, sit down. Douglas sat, eyes darting between us nervously. Martin turned his monitor toward Douglas. Hit play. Audio filled the office, Douglas's own voice. Michael's perfect, works hard, makes good money, too stupid to realize what's happening in his own house. Douglas went pale. That's taken out of context. Martin played the money exchange clip. Austin and Douglas shaking hands. Clear audio about monthly payments. Douglas stammered. I can explain. She seduced me. Catherine came on to me. I was weak. I spoke for the first time, voice ice cold. Don't. You paid my son $750 monthly for 14 months. You used your position to control my schedule. You created opportunities to sleep with my wife. And here's the best part. I pushed the DNA report in front of Douglas. 0% match. Austin isn't my son. He's yours. You've been sleeping with your own son's mother in my house on my dime for 26 years. I have emails from 1997 proving you knew he was yours from the beginning. Douglas's face turned the color of old paper. His hands shook. Michael the First. How did you? I didn't. Martin cut in, voice hard as granite. Is this true, Douglas? Is that your biological child? Douglas couldn't answer, just stared at the DNA report. You're fired, effective immediately. Termination for cause under Section 17B, engaging in relationships that compromise corporate integrity and involve subordinates' family members. You forfeit all accumulated bonuses, $485,000 total. Security will escort you from the building. You have 10 minutes to collect personal items under supervision. Martin, please. 11 years. I have a family. 3 kids. My reputation. You should have thought about that before systematically violating every ethical standard this company has and betraying one of our best engineers. Martin hit the intercom. Amanda, call security. 2 officers to my office immediately. While waiting, Martin turned to me. Michael, I'm profoundly sorry this happened under my watch. Effective today, you're promoted to regional director. Salary increases to $142,000 annually. You'll report directly to me. If you need time to handle personal matters, approved. I nodded, feeling numb. Thank you. Security arrived at 4:47 p.m. 2 officers escorted Douglas out. Douglas looked back at me once. His eyes held pure hatred. After Douglas left, Martin spoke. Michael, if there's anything else the company can do. I shook my head. You've done enough. Justice needed to happen here. I left Martin's office at 5:15 p.m. By 5:30, I'd sent one final email to nancy.r.anderson@gmail.com. Subject: your husband's 26-year secret attachments. Selected videos. DNA report, 1997 emails. Mrs. Anderson, I'm sorry you have to learn the truth this way. Your husband Douglas and my wife Catherine have been having an affair. But it's worse than that. 26 years ago, Catherine was pregnant with Douglas's child. They trapped me into raising that child as my own. I have proof attached. You deserve to know who you're married to. Michael Harrison. Send. By 6 p.m., I was in my truck heading home with attorney Carolyn Spencer and process server Ricardo Navarro. The hardest part was waiting at my house, Friday, March 1st, 2024. 6 p.m. I pulled up to my house with Carolyn Spencer and process server Ricardo Navarro. My hands were steady on the steering wheel. 3 of us walked to the front door. I used my own key. Probably the last time. Living room. Catherine and Austin on the couch watching TV. Casual Friday evening. Catherine saw us, stood immediately. Michael, you're home early. Who are these people? Her eyes moved to Navarro's uniform. Fear crept across her face. Catherine Harrison Austin. Harrison, this is attorney Carolyn Spencer and Officer Navarro from Maricopa County Court. They have papers for you. Navarro handed Catherine an envelope. Mrs. Harrison, you are served with a petition for dissolution of marriage. Grounds adultery with documentary evidence. Catherine's hands shook. Michael, what is this? We can talk. I pulled out my phone, hit play. Catherine's own voice filled the room. At least he pays all the bills while we have our fun. Doug gives me things Michael never could. Color drained from her face. Austin stood. Dad, what the hell? Sit down, Austin. My tone made him sit. Navarro handed Austin a second envelope. Mr. Harrison, you are served with a declaration of disinheritance under Arizona Revised Statutes, Section 14-2804. Grounds: conspiracy to defraud financial gain through deception. Disinheritance, Dad. I'm sorry, I can pay it back. I cut him off. Don't call me Dad. Silence. You lost that right when you took $750 monthly to keep me blind. Catherine collapsed, sobbing. Michael, please. 26 years. We can go to counseling. Let's be accurate. 26 years since you trapped me with another man's child. I threw the DNA report on the coffee table. Gene test labs. Probability of paternity 0.00%. Austin Harrison is not the biological child of Michael Harrison. Austin picked up the report, hands trembling. What are you saying? Your biological father is Douglas Anderson. DNA confirmed it. Your mother was pregnant in 1997, then deliberately selected me to play father for 26 years. I showed them the 1997 emails on my phone. Read Catherine's words. There's this guy, Michael Harrison, sweet and kind of naive. I'll make this happen. Austin turned to Catherine. Mom, is this real? Catherine sobbed into her hands, so Carolyn stepped forward. Mrs. Harrison, my client is filing civil suits for paternity fraud. Damages $500,000 for child rearing costs, $150,000 emotional distress. Total $650,000. I don't have. The court will establish payment. Asset division, Mr. Harrison receives 75%. This house becomes his sole property. You receive approximately $80,000. Zero spousal support. To Austin. You've been removed from your father's will, his life insurance policy, and disinherited under Arizona law. Navarro spoke. 72 hours to vacate. By 6 p.m. Monday, March 4th. Personal items only. If you don't leave voluntarily, we return with police. Austin broken. Dad. Michael, did you ever really love me? I looked at him, the man I'd raised for 26 years. I loved the son I thought I had. That love was real. But you, the man who sold me out for $750 monthly, I don't know who you are. I turned to leave. Stopped at the door. Douglas was fired at 4:47 this afternoon. Lost $485,000 in bonuses. His wife Nancy received full evidence she's filing for divorce. Your plan failed, Catherine. 26 years of lies collapsed in 1 week. You'll spend 17 years paying me back every penny. I walked out at 7:34 p.m. Carolyn and Navarro followed. Behind me, Catherine's sobs and Austin's silence. I didn't look back. Some doors once closed should stay closed. I got in my truck and drove away from the house I'd built, the family I'd loved, the life I'd thought was real. None of it had been real, but what came next would be. Tuesday, May 14th, 2024, 3:15 p.m. I sat in my corner office on the 8th floor of Cortec Construction, staring at the blueprints for the Valencia Commercial District sprawled across my desk. The numbers blurred together, load calculations, material costs, timeline projections. My mind was somewhere else entirely. Regional Director. Annual salary, $142,000. 3 engineers reporting directly to me. A city view that stretched across the Phoenix skyline, where the late afternoon sun painted the desert mountains in shades of amber and rust. 2.5 months had passed since everything exploded. I should have felt victorious. The divorce had been finalized on April 3rd, when Judge Martinez took exactly 43 minutes to review the evidence, the videos, the DNA report, Derek Sullivan's investigation, the 1997 emails before ruling in my favor. 43 minutes to dismantle 26 years of lies. Douglas had lost everything the day security escorted him from this building on March 1st. Fired with cause under Section 17B, he'd forfeited $485,000 in accrued bonuses. Nancy filed for divorce 2 days later, and by mid-April she'd walked away with their $1.2 million house in North Scottsdale, the $850,000 condo in Sedona, and 80% of their investment portfolio. Now Douglas lived in a rented apartment in Mesa for $1,400 a month and had been unemployed for 10 weeks. The construction industry had effectively blacklisted him. During his April deposition, he'd refused to acknowledge Austin as his son. Too late for that now, he'd told his lawyer. 26 years too late. Catherine had moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Tempe right after the eviction deadline, $1,350 a month. Within 2 weeks, she'd found work as an administrative assistant at Southwest Logistics, Inc., earning $1,650 a month before taxes. But the court-ordered restitution payments crushed her $2,500 monthly for 17 years. The math was brutal. Rent plus restitution equaled $3,850 in monthly obligations against $1,650 in income. She'd taken a part-time retail job at Target that brought in another $800, leaving her with roughly $100 monthly. Austin had become a ghost. He worked as a DoorDash driver, pulling in about $1,400 a month, and shared a 4-person rental in Tolleson for $475. The court had sentenced him to 200 hours of community service for conspiracy to defraud. He'd tried to contact me 47 times, calls, texts, emails I'd blocked without reading. Austin had lost both fathers now, the one who'd raised him and refused to call him son, and the one who'd sired him and refused to acknowledge his existence. My promotion had come with a $175,000 compensation bonus, Cortex apology for what Douglas had done under their roof. Combined with the house now worth $780,000, and fully paid off my 75% share of our joint investments at $240,000, and the $135,000 I'd moved to my personal account, I was financially secure. But I lived alone in a 4-bedroom house that echoed with absence. Sundays stretched like the desert itself, vast and empty. Matthew visited on Tuesday nights, and we'd watch the suns or sit in silence, which was its own kind of comfort. In my desk drawer, I kept USB drive number 1. Sometimes late at night, I'd pull it out and hold it, feeling its weight. I never plugged it in again, but this small piece of plastic represented the moment everything changed, the moment I'd stopped being a fool and started documenting the truth. Last month, I'd had the cherry tree cut down, the one I'd planted in 2000 when Austin turned 2. The landscaper asked if I wanted to keep the wood. I told him no. Some roots run too deep to save. This morning, I'd met with Janet Morrison, the real estate agent Matthew recommended. The house was going on the market next week. I'd already found a 2-bedroom condo in downtown Tempe, 1,400 square feet, with a rooftop terrace listed at $485,000. The paperwork would close in 3 weeks. At 11, I'd stopped at Cartel Coffee Lab. While waiting for my Americano, a woman about 45 with kind eyes and a Diamondbacks cap had struck up a conversation about the unseasonably cool weather. We talked for maybe 5 minutes about nothing in particular. Normal conversation, normal connection. When I walked back to my truck, I realized it was the first time in months I'd spoken to someone new without the weight of my story pressing down on every word. Now, watching the sun sink lower toward the Estrella Mountains, I thought about what justice actually cost. The price wasn't just what you took from those who wronged you. It was what you lost in the process. 26 years of marriage, a son I'd loved, friends who couldn't handle the wreckage, the ability to trust easily. But as the Phoenix sky deepened from gold to crimson, I realized something else. My worth wasn't determined by what Catherine and Douglas had done to me. It was determined by what I chose to do next, how I treated myself, how I rebuilt, whether I let their lies define the rest of my life. Tomorrow I'd meet Janet to finalize the listing. Tomorrow night, Matthew and I had Suns tickets. Next month, I'd move into the condo and start over in a space that held no ghosts, just the possibility of something honest and new. Justice had cost me everything I thought I had, but it had also given me back something I'd lost: my integrity, my self-respect, the knowledge that I wouldn't let anyone make a fool of me ever again. The desert sunset burned across the valley, and for the first time in 2.5 months, I felt something that wasn't anger or grief or numbness. I felt ready. If you're reading this family story, hear me clearly. Don't be like Michael. Don't wait 2.5 months to see the signs. Don't spend 26 years building a life on blind trust without verification. This family story taught a hard lesson: that love without honesty is just another form of slavery. Michael gave everything: his time, his money, his identity as a father, to people who saw him as a resource to exploit. Catherine and Douglas didn't just betray him. They built an entire architecture of deception with his life as the foundation. The dad revenge you've witnessed wasn't about cruelty. It was about accountability. Some call it excessive. Others call it proportional. When someone steals 26 years of your life, $599,000 of your earnings, and your identity as a father, justice can't be gentle. Dad revenge means ensuring consequences match crimes not out of hatred, but out of necessity. This dad revenge cost Michael everything he thought he had, but it gave him back something more valuable: his self-respect. Here's the lesson: verify everything. Trust, but document. Watch for patterns. When people show you who they are through their actions, believe them the first time. Frank Wilson tried to warn Michael on February 12th. He should have listened immediately. Guard your family story. Protect it fiercely. Because once it's poisoned with lies, the antidote is scorched earth, and nobody walks away unburned. God gives us intuition for a reason. Michael ignored his for too long. Don't make that mistake. Thanks for sticking with me through the final chapter of this emotionally charged journey. I'm genuinely curious what your take would be. Leave a comment sharing how you'd handle things if you were in Michael's shoes. What would your response be to such calculated deception and systematic betrayal? I personally value and read every single perspective you share. If this quest for truth and accountability resonated with you or shifted how you think about trust in relationships, I'd be truly honored if you'd subscribe to catch more thought-provoking narratives down the road. Quick transparency note: while this story taps into real relationship dynamics and actual legal frameworks, certain dramatic moments have been amplified for storytelling impact. If this particular approach doesn't vibe with your preferences, feel free to explore other narratives on the channel that might connect better with you.